short class will show you how to create infinite panning loop. We'll explore what problems we can face in this type of animation, how to avoid pattern look, and how to add randomize to it. On screen you see the result of this class, and if you like it, let's start to explore how to achieve this kind of animation. For this class I preset up scene with isometric camera, or you can use perspective camera, it doesn't matter. I'll show you the principle of panning and you can tweak the camera the way you want. I set Redshift as my renderer, but you can use any render engine for this class. Just I am more familiar with this one. So the default settings. Let me show you the scene overview. Simple geometry, standing on the floor, nothing fancy. I go into Redshift, create render view. I set brute force to primary GI engine, just to have brighter render, and create Redshift sky rig. Maybe this kind, small tune, side shadow, and two materials. One for floor. We can rename this thing floor. Set it to almost white, maybe 90, and high roughness, so we don't have these huge reflections. Set our another material to our geometry, maybe 85, with roughness, with high roughness. And I'd like to add some contrast to scene, and I maybe pick up some dark blue. I think this works well. And too much reflection now, decrease high roughness. So it's almost diffuse floor, maybe like this, but with small reflections. Now I go to sky, maybe decrease this intensity, because we have huge specular. We can work with turbidity. Kind of like this. Not very great light, but for this class should work. Now I check the roughness once again, because we have strange specular. Yes, we remove this. Maybe going to cube and add some fillet. Maybe 0.5, just to have this specular. And our scene is ready for our further animation. So I'll stop this thing and we'll continue in another lesson. Now I'd like to create infinite panning. Let me close this thing for now. Of this thing. So we need a pattern, a repetitive pattern, so we can stick with it. That's why we select our cloner, going to instance, going on the top view, and rearrange. We need to find proper axis, and to set this thing almost the same as we use in cloner. So we have 100 step, and now we have -8 and 10. This is not quite 100, so I think this should be like -800. So we have repetitive pattern. Now we extend our thing to the side. So we have extra elements outside our frame. To see our frame, we're going to view settings, view, and set opacity to 100 to keep everything visible, and we see these black borders for better framing. If you want, you can shrink down opacity to 80% and maybe change color, for example, to like this. So we see things out of frame and we keep seeing our borders clearly. We have instance 1, and I think we can multiply by 2 the third, even maybe one more. Now we create null object, put our cloners there, and now we have repetitive elements. We can try to animate our camera to move. Maybe we see this pattern, square, cone, sphere, and we can try this thing, sphere, where is it, sphere, and maybe like this. You can think that we have a beautiful loop, but we have some problems with this technique. I create render view once again, dock it, and if you use not isometrical camera, you'll see, and even in isometric, that we have different shadow angle. It will be deformed, so camera panning in this way is not very suitable technique. That's why, especially in non-isometric, because we have light over here, and when we're panning, light moves to this side and we don't have pure loop. We're going and disable this thing, and we move our plane to the null, and we see that we have 800 step between cloners. Let me go to the project settings. Project settings, key interpolation, linear, maybe shrink down to 180, or maybe, yes, keep like this. And we set simple animation. In x-axis, we're going and set minus plus 800 multiplied by 2. And if you see, let me hide this sun, we have similar frame, just our plane is not very big, so we can easily extend it into directions we need. And now we have perfect loop. Yes, it's very fast, and we have some issue. We're going to extend back to our 300, and we have to cut the last frame because they are identical. You'll see. Let me. We have some change. We have these elements here and no elements here. I think we might create one more instance, minus 800, and we'll have the same frame. Now we decrease the last frame and we'll check our loop. You'll see it's still very fast, but I think you get the idea. Then, and perfect. I have our animation calculated, and yes, it's still pretty fast and some laggy, but I think this, let me try, I think perfect loop is here. And now we have very repetitive pattern. I'd like to improve it, and I go and set select cloner object random, and now it's more random. I add some shader effector, going to parameter, going to position, set maybe to 100, disable scaling, disable coloring, go into shading, noise, and I'd like our elements to go up, so we have some animation. And I up a bit contrast and decrease brightness, so I don't want all elements to pop. I want few elements to pop. And now we have one problem, that last frame and first frame are not in loop. And now we have this loop period, and this will help us. We have 30 frames per second. Now we have to set 10 seconds here. We'll see that we have proper animation. Maybe going to hidden line will speed up. I think this is beautiful looping animation. Of course, I extend this animation twice because this is too fast. I go to null object, set it to 600, and in shader effector I can extend this loop period maybe to 20 seconds, but I can keep it to 10. We decrease our timeline in one frame. So we have this beautiful loop. I'll render this thing, and then we can check this sequence in After Effects. Before we render this thing, we need to optimize our settings. And if you look my previous classes, you know that I going to samples and trying to avoid this pure white zone. I start with unified sampling. Then I disable brute force. We have white here. Maybe shadows can improve our quality. Not at all. So I keep off light override. Maybe go into reflection. Yes, it cleans up. Multiply by 2. And I think this should work nice. Let's go to regular image. Pretty clean. Going back to samples. Going to GI. Going to brute force. And we'll see that there are a lot of white. So we have to up this thing. Maybe to 500. Multiply by 2. I think these settings should work fine. Regular image, and pretty soft and noise free. Of course you can up samples and up to create more clear image, but I stick for these settings for now. I'd like to create some new colors. So we have this, our elements, and I'd like to add, let me disable bucket mode, new color. For example, blue for cube, and maybe more green to it, and some opposite color. We have this kind of type of gammas, so we can pick our base color and create semi-thread, split, complementary, or maybe analogous, or maybe this kind of logic. I'll create opposite and add, for example, to sphere. I don't like that all our elements have the same color, so I duplicate and move color to another elements. We have cone with white and blue color, cubes with this warm color and cold one, and now we avoid very repetitive pattern. I know it's still here, but check. We'll create cloner with one color, with iterate mode, Now we can change to random mode, and now introduce different colors. I think this looks much beautiful. Now I hit render to create this loop, and I'll show you the result. In this last video I'll show you how we can check our loop. I strongly recommend to render in low settings, check the animation, so not to waste time in final render and find out that something goes wrong. One more thing, as I said in previous video, we always trying to find the balance between quality and speed of render, and for example this time I get a noisy result. I can use maybe standard, remove grain plugin. I'll set to final output, and we have this glowing effect, going for example to noise reduction and decrease the noise reduction strength, and get something pretty nice. We remove some grain and we can use sharp and get better result and noise free render. Of course you can play with settings. Now it's not the point of this class. The finding proper sampling takes a lot of time, and somebody use another render engine, so just remember, try to find out proper balance with noise, speed, and always check if you can remove some grain in post-production. Now I disabled remove grain, and we have to check our animation, is it loop or not. Just not to waste time and render this all sequence, I'm going to layer, or I think edit, split layer, set it like this, select both of them, animation, keyframe assistant, sequence layer, shrink down our preview segment, hit ramp preview, and we have proper animation. And this is what I call perfect animation, and you can check it by frame, and we have smooth transition from last frame to first frame. We can check on this cube or on this cube. So very smooth, and I hope this class will show you a new basic principle of how create infinite panning loop animation. Thank you and have a nice day.